Hello, my name is Eli Tennant, and today I'm going to be answering the question, how can I learn to play over the common AABA Jazz Standard head format? And you can come along and learn as well. So the first thing we need to know, that's my driving question, the first thing we need to know before we get started is our jazz drum setup. Now, here I have a couple different things going on, but the most key instruments here are our hi-hat. This is the one I can control with my foot, and the top cymbal here goes up and down, and it slaps against the bottom one, and it can also be hit with the drumstick. In here, the center, we have the snare drum. This one has some snares on the bottom that give it a little bit of a distinctive sound, and it sounds like this. Alright, and now over here we have a bass drum. You can't really see it, but I control that one with my foot, and it plays those low notes. And then we have our ride cymbal right here, which I'll be playing a lot with my right hand, doing a couple different patterns on there. So those four, the hi-hat, the snare drum, the bass drum, and the ride cymbal, are the most important ones for jazz. But you'll also see a couple additions in there. Often people will add their high tom or their rack tom. It's called the rack tom because it's up here on the rack above the bass drum. And then also the floor tom. Here are two common additions to a jazz setup, and they'll typically be tuned up pretty high, so they have a higher note than what you might hear in like rock or funk. Now up here there's also a crash cymbal. This one is a little bit special. It's for like doing fills and little additions inside the song. It sort of spices it up, but a lot of the time you can play that on the ride cymbal as well. Now, that's our drum setup, and the sticks I like to use are these 7A, and they have the plastic like composite tips. I think they make a little nice ringing noise when I hit it. I feel like the wooden ones are a little bit too soft, but that's just my preference, and it depends upon your hand size and how you use your sticks when you're drumming. Now, the idea of jazz drums when they're played is that you have your bass drum playing all the quarter notes. This is typically how it's done. There's a lot of different things that happen in jazz. Your left foot, the one on the hi-hat, is going to be playing on 2 and 4. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just like that all the time. And those feet are just going to keep doing that pattern the whole time. They basically never stop, unless we're doing some kind of fill. Now, your right hand is going to do what a lot of people call a spang-a-lang on the ride cymbal. That's right, I said spang-a-lang, because that's what it sounds like. We go spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang, spang-a-lang. And what that actually is playing is 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 1, just like that, 1 and 2, 3 and 4. So we've got 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 and 1. All right, and so I had the ands mixed up there just for a second. Now, the standard AABA format is a little bit different. Now, to get the idea of this, a jazz standard is nothing super complicated. It's just a song that like most people should know if they're playing jazz. So any song that like is super well known in jazz is like a jazz standard. Now, the head to one of those standards is the part that's like really recognizable. That's like the key part of the song. And it typically has a closing section, and in the middle there's just a ton of solos from all the different people playing instruments. Now, the head is like the most important part because that's what people hear and they're like, oh, they're playing the song that I know. And a lot of them use an AABA format for that head. And all that means is that we have an A section, another A section, a B section, and an A section inside the head. And those letters don't really mean anything other than they're like identifiers. The A section here is 8 bars. Then you're going to play it again right here. The B section is 8 bars, and then you go back to the A section again. 8 more bars down here. Altogether, you have 32 bars for the AABA song format. And now, when we're in the A section, what happens is once we get to the bottom, a lot of songs will loop this again, and you end up playing 3 A sections in a row, because you have 2 at the start, and then one at the end, you go back to the start and play through again. And in the B section, you're not really able to notice this when it's just drums, but when you're playing with a band, it often holds like a little bit of tension, like they play a little bit of an off-key type sound through the B section, and then the A section is a little bit more comfortable feeling. Now, an example of the AABA format, it really doesn't sound much different from just the normal jazz, but I'm going to show you a couple other things that get integrated into this format as we go through, and I'll try to call out what format we're in, but you'll hear me hit the crash cymbal at the end of each of those phrases. So a phrase is 8 of these bars. So every time I hit the crash cymbal, you know I've moved on to the next one. So I'll hit it, and then we're on the second A, I hit it again, you know we're on the B, and then back to the A, and I'll go through all 32 bars. It doesn't really take that long because we're moving pretty quick. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that's what the sound is sounding like, our jazz. And now jumping right into those 32 bars, we have 2, 3, 4. We're in the B section. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. And that's the end of our last A section. And like I said, we might loop it if we were in a real song. I am still learning this, so I'm not perfect at playing through it, but the way this works is we have our comping happening here on the snare drum, and that's what I was doing in my left hand, playing some different notes in there that just seem like they fit and like are in a good place for the song. In a head, that doesn't always happen because the drummer wants to be sometimes a little bit more laid back and do like hits with the whole band. They don't want to just go winging off on their own, playing random stuff on the snare drum. That's more for the solo section. And then I had what was called a phrase ender at the end of each of the phrases. So we finished an A section, we had all 8 bars, and then about halfway through the last 8th bar, I would like start something, boom, you hit the ride cymbal, and then you move on to the next bar, the next phrase. So that's a phrase ender, and they really help the music keep moving and help the audience and yourself keep track of where you are inside the music. And then I kept doing the same sequence with my feet the entire time, just like a good jazz drummist. And over here on the ride cymbal, what actually can happen is you can bend the rules of jazz a little bit. So sometimes I was playing the whole thing the entire time, but sometimes people will mix it up and they just play a little bit of a different pattern up here on the ride cymbal, or change it occasionally to just sort of give the song a different feel. And that's totally fine. You just want to make sure all of those are intentional. You don't want to be like getting mixed up and be like, oh yeah, it's okay, I'm just playing jazz, I can do whatever I want. So we're comping on the snare drum when we can and making sure we're not overdoing it, and we can change things up here a little bit. And sometimes the feet change, sometimes you'll do stuff on the bass drum, especially for those, especially for the phrase enders. But other than that, you're typically gonna just stay with mixing it up here on the snare drum. And like I said, jazz, you can bend the rules just a little bit. It's kind of open, but there still are some hard and fast laws you gotta obey, just like playing 2 and 4 on here. And all of my sources, the things I learned all this from, I'll put those in the description down below, like the name of my teachers and stuff. And then also, my name is Eli Tennant, and this is my spring 2022 PBL project for music. All right, I hope you had an awesome day, and I will see you next time. Bye.